So, hello to all of you, the one who are online and the one who are here. I'm Paul Luu, I am the Executive Secretary of the Beverley Initiative. It's an international multi-stakeholder partnership launched at COP28 in Paris some 8 years ago to promote soil carbon sequestration to fight climate change and food insecurity. So, welcome to our 90-minute side event on the Conscious Planet Safe Soil Pavilion. I would like to warmly thank Safe Soil and Conscious Planet movement to allowing us and the Beverley Initiative to organize this event today. Thank you, Avanti, thank you, Pravina, and of course, thank you to Sadhguru for his collaboration running for more than 1.5 hours now, year. Assessing progress in agriculture concerning soil health. Well, the needs for monitoring, reporting, and verification tools for policymakers, farmers, businesses, and civil society to assess value chain and report to consumer. Wow, what a program. Measuring and validating farmland and soil health. It's not an easy process for all stakeholders, from farm to fork. Policymakers have to get access to reliable data to determine their policy orientation. Farmers need to have access to affordable and reliable information to confirm or change their technical choice in the field. Investors and businesses have to report on their impact, value chain and own processes in terms of emission and storage. We're not talking about carbon credit bio, that's just said by Pravina. And civil society, including consumers, must be provided with reliable and regular information to guide their lifestyle choice. All stakeholders have interest in MRV tools, reliable and at an accessible cost. To discuss that important question, and also to give some information and clue about the MRV tools available today, let me introduce our panelists who will participate to this roundtable. It's an interesting mix of scientists, technology provider, users, business. So 2 more people are coming, they are on their way, but we have started because they will speak later. First of all, we will welcome Beverley Henry and Budiman Minasny. They are part of the Scientific and Technical Committee of the Beverley Initiative, and Beverley is working in Australia, and Budiman is working at the University of Sydney in Australia as well, even though you are more Indonesian, I would say, than Australian, but who knows. We will also welcome a representative from Baif Development Research Foundation in the name of Rakesh Warrier. For the business, then, we will have Sandrine, but she's on her way, not yet arrived. And for the MRV tools, I would say business representative, we will have another lady. She's also on her way. We will have Mr. Bradford Willis from, he will be the speaker for soil information, very starting initiative about some device. He will talk us about that. And JK Ladha, which is changing his hat today, and which is from University of Davis, and he will be the representative of Digital Green today. Okay. And of course, you already guessed that I will have the pleasure to moderate this roundtable. And I will give each speaker roughly 5 minutes. Please try to be concise enough to explain its position or proposition. Then I will try to moderate the discussion, and Beatrice will make the wrap-up at the end of our side event. So let's start with you, Beverley. We'll start with the woman. I think it's normal. You are the co-chair of the Scientific and Technical Committee. Please, could you give us an overview of the scientific knowledge of carbon soil sequestration mechanism And maybe Budiman, you will explain a little bit more how we can measure that in another part. So, Beverley, please, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Paul. And good morning to everyone. I'm going to be very brief in my introduction and then hand over to Budiman to explain a bit more of the technical detail. But let's start with soil carbon sequestration. In its very simplest form, it can be described as a process that transfers carbon from the atmosphere into the soil where it's stored. But behind that very simple description, there's a lot of complexity. Soil organic carbon itself is complex and its dynamics, the way it moves from the atmosphere to the biosphere, through the soil, and most of it cycles through this process quite rapidly. But that dynamic nature of carbon through the soil, and it starts with photosynthesis in plants that takes the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and incorporates the carbon into it, and feeds a host of microbes in the soil. And in that process, any energy and transforming the organic matter, a lot of the carbon is released again to the atmosphere fairly quickly. Some of it, though, is stored for a longer time and kept out of the atmosphere, and that's the part that's of particular interest for climate change mitigation. And that's the part that I suppose in the end we want to measure for carbon credits. But it's important to note that both the rapidly cycling carbon and the slow cycling carbon are absolutely critically important. The fast cycling carbon provides nutrients and supports plant growth, while the slow carbon also helps plant growth through soil structure and soil health. And farmers are interested in both of those. And they've been interested in the measurement of soil organic matter and soil organic carbon for the purposes of making farm decisions for better crop growth and better yields for a couple of centuries. But now we're more interested in for some stakeholders, in understanding how to also measure climate change mitigation. And that's particularly challenging because we're trying to measure a small change in that very large background amount of soil carbon. And it's an interesting challenge for us as scientists. We want to get the numbers right, but we also need to be aware of the policy stakeholders and the farmers who want accessible information at a price that they can afford to monitor, because they need to know their progress, and policy people need to quantify that amount of sequestration. So I'm going to hand over to Budi now, and he's going to talk to you about some of the options that are now being developed and have been traditionally used for measuring soil carbon in a way that can be reported and validated. Thank you, Budi.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Beverley. So continuing on from Beverley's explanation about soil carbon sequestration. So if, for example, a farmer or a business owner wants to get credit for the carbon it has sequestered or put in the soil, he has to verify it, right? So he has to show with confidence that after some time, because of his new practice or his good management, that the carbon is in the soil has increased. So in simple terms is that first one has to go out in the field and measure the carbon, how much carbon in the soil. So we are talking about how much tons of carbon that is stored in the soil as a baseline, right? So after some time, after the application of different management practices, of the good management practices, then we return back to the field and then take another set of samples to see how much concentration, how much stock has increased in this period of time. That gives us the actual measure of how much carbon the soil has increased, which is due to different management. That means that those increase are CO2 from the atmosphere that is converted into organic matter that is more stable form in the soil. while it sounds very simple, the devil is in the detail, right? So because soil is very, very spatially, that means that, for example, I took a sample here and then just another 5 meters over there, the carbon here and the carbon over there is not going to be the same. So we need to have taken enough samples to give us a confidence about how much stock, how much tons of carbon within an area that is that of interest. Of course, then the more samples we take, that means the more accurate we are, the more confident, the more accurate we can give the detail about the tons of carbon, but of course more expensive it becomes. So that is a trade-off between the accuracy and also the cost. So that's what I'm saying is the gold standard, right? Gold standard that you take samples and then you send it to the lab and then it gives you a numbers. That's the gold standard that we want. But of course, for farmers, smallholder farmers and other farmers, that it's not feasible for them to take samples and then analyze it. It's cost a lot. So people have been moving on. So fortunately, there's been progress that is happening all around the world that we want to know. So what are the cheaper options? What are the other options? So the other options, of course, is take the baseline and then do modeling, that is models that are already calibrated in the area, and then we can estimate how much within certain period, how much we think the carbon has sequestered or increased in the soil. But of course that carries an amount, what they call as uncertainty, because we do not measure it, but we model it. We assume that based on the data we have that it has that it will increase or it will decrease. So there are progress that are happening and around the world, and scientists and practitioners are working together so that it's practicable and it's scalable.
Thank you very much, Budiman. It's very interesting what you introduced. I mean, there are the techniques, but there are also some aspects concerning farmers and the practicability and the fact that really we need to be accurate in terms of prices. So we will come back on that. And so, Mrs., please join. There are 2 seats over here. Yeah, sure. I'm supposed to stand, that's why. Don't worry, we know that it's traffic jam at the entrance, so no worry. So after this scientific introduction about what we are talking about, then just give the floor to, I would say, a kind of representative of NGOs and farmers. I would say you are a mixed bag. So Rakesh, can you explain to us the position of the, well, let's understand what are the expectations of the farmers and the civil society on the MRV tools, and why the farmers and NGO need such a tools, and what kind of result they can expect from those.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Greetings from BIF Development Research Foundation, India. Glad to be part of this event and appreciate all of you being here, both physically and online as well. So the points that I'm going to raise align perfectly with what Beverley and Budiman just mentioned a while ago, but I'm going to give the perspective from the field. Since BIF has been working for more than 56 years on sustainable rural development domains of livestock production and land-based programs, focusing both on livelihoods and positive climate actions, which have enabled over 4 million households to enhance their living standards. So to put this in the perspective of today's discussion context from the point of view of India, so we have a large proportion of small holdings, almost like maybe 3/4 it's small holdings less than 2 hectares. And 2/3 of our population is dependent on agriculture, primarily subsistence farming. But at the same time, the contribution of agriculture to the GDP is roughly 1/5. So that gives the context. So in such subsistence farming system, as you know, soil health is probably overlooked. Or maybe a myopic view is actually taken, where you only have to put in chemical fertilizers, and that's what is soil health. From the we cannot blame the farmers. That's a limited viewpoint. So coming from that, coming to the expectation, the expectations, to set the expectations, I'll try to point out some challenges or the difficulties that we are facing, the farmers and the facilitators, civil society organizations as facilitators, which Budiman also rightly mentioned in terms of the difficulties. So the event today, it underlines the very basic premise that what cannot be measured cannot be managed. So that exactly, I think, is the context of the MRV aspect that we are speaking on. Some of the advances in MRV tools in the Indian context, it's an emerging and constantly evolving field. So there are a lot of changes, and we are also trying to learn. And it's not that we have a ready-made tool or ready-made set of tools available which we can directly apply and which we can take it up in the field. It, of course, assists in making informed decisions for the farmers and for the technical personnel. At the same time, reliability and consistency are concerns. Another point is on reference data and benchmarking, which you brightly mentioned. So and therefore we cannot do extrapolation, like we cannot, and the Indian context, it's very fragmented and small holding, as I mentioned. So as Budiman was mentioning, so every 5 meters it changes. So we have even another variable of the farmers also changing because their land holding is very small. So it adds to the complexity of the problem. The turnaround time is very critical because agriculture seasons have a very short window span. So in case MRV tool, like it takes in the data, the raw data, and gives, just for example, the soil testing that we have been now promoting since last few years on a very large extent by the government. So we need to see that the turnaround time is much quicker so that the farmers can then act on it. And last, before I wind up this round of discussion, one thing which we are always focusing on is aligning with the 4A framework, roughly that, which gives a very clear thing of what we need to do. First is, of course, the awareness. That awareness is required at the farmer level, why they have to adopt these MRV tools. Second is the availability of the MRV tool itself. If it's available, if it is not accessible to the farmer, maybe because of the gap in the technology or in the communication or in the actual spatial context, so that also has to be taken care. And the fourth important point is affordability. So unless all these four, we bridge the gap for all these four aspects, it's difficult to go forward. So I'll pause here for this round. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rakesh. I think you set up some very important notion about the relation with farmers and the civil society. Time factor is very important. I mean, well, the agriculture are different in the south and in the north, and the reed are not the same. So we have a seasonal reed. Well, hope so, still. With the climate change, we never know. But of course, in the tropical area, I mean, the rotation are faster. And another interesting point, I think it's important to stress, is the fact that there is a difference between soil health and soil quality. And what we are talking about here is soil health. Soil quality is a bit more intrinsic, and it depends on where you are, the chance you are, I would say. But soil health depends mainly on the management process. So this is very important, and I like to recall that the more often that I can. So after the scientific explanation and some overview about what the farmers and civil society are waiting for about MRV, let's discuss about and give the floor to the entrepreneur and the representative from business. So, Sandrine, I'm coming to you. I did not present you because you were not there when I make the presentation. So we have Sandrine Sommer, who is a sustainable officer. I don't remember. Chief Sustainable Officer.
Chief Sustainability Officer.
Thank you. You are in the middle of the green of Moet and Sea.
No, it's
a very famous trademark for spirits and wine.
Moet and Sea, yes, is the wine and spirit activity from LVMH.
Okay, and so for you, in your perspective, what are your needs as a businesswoman, I would say, representative from business, concerning MRV in the way of working with farmers and producers?
Farmers, producers, and wine growers in our case. So, just few words about our commitment. So we represent 27 different brands all over the world, and we have some terroirs, which very important when we are talking about soils. Terroirs everywhere, in Argentina, in Australia, in India, in China, in France, of course. And we have a dedicated program regarding sustainability called Living Soils, Living Together. And our main target is to regenerate soils, to mitigate our climate impact all along the value chain, and of course, involve and embark the society and people with us. So we have different issues. And regarding soils, which is very important and in the heart of our strategy, we have been working on this subject for a long time, and we have been working to reduce our environmental impact. And we certify, we use environmental certification all over the world, the most demanding and the most local one, very important, because again, I think we have local issues. It's a global subject, but local issues, of course, and we have to adapt. And we have been working on this subject for a long time, and some concrete results were, for example, ban herbicide in our own vineyard. The target now is to do more and to regenerate soils, and of course to increase the soil health. And to do that, of course, we need absolutely to measure everything. And the difficulty for the moment is, even if for farmers it's not accessible, you know, even for a big company, it's not so clear. The different type of measurement, you have very a lot of different types of measurement, and the thing is, it's difficult to compare everything because the methodology are not exactly the same. So the difficulty, even for a big company, is to well understand the best tool in order to measure everything and to find the right KPI. And when we are talking about soil health, it's not so easy to measure the soil health. We have some very interesting tool, for example, with Genesis, but Adrienne, I will let you the floor to explain exactly what you are doing. But your question, Paul, is how we first of all, of course, we need absolutely the MRV to progress, and particularly, you know, in a big company, we like to measure everything, and we have some commitment. And to be sure to achieve our commitment, we have to be sure to measure progressively and to have the right way to go there. So absolutely, it's a necessity, and it's complex for the moment. So the thing is, first of all, we have to have something very clear in terms of methodology, reproducible everywhere, very important. Of course, learn as a big company in order to make it easier for our wine growers, because as you explained, it's much more complex for them to understand what do they have in terms of measurement, and absolutely key to measure everything in order to understand and to understand how they can go further.
Thank you, Sandrine. And it's true also that you are working, when I said you, businesses are working in a moving environment in terms of legislation, in terms of regulation, and it's quite difficult to adapt. So we have an uncertainty on the tools, we have an uncertainty on the environment, we have an uncertainty of the market as well. So it's a lot of uncertainty, and that's what I would like the people that listen to us also keep from that roundtable, is the fact that we need to be adaptable, and we need really to be flexible. This is also a message for the policymaker, because sometimes they just forget that science is not an exact science. Nothing is black or white. It just most of the time is gray. Right. So, business, science, farmers and NGOs. Well, let's come to the technologies and really what the enterprise that are working on those technologies. So we have 3 representatives from that. I think they are all different. That's interest. And if I may, I will start by the lady again. So Adrienne, Adrienne de Malleray, is you represent a startup called Genesis, and you are co-founder of this startup, so you know it very well. So you will. Could you tell us a little bit more about what is Genesis, what it does, who are your customers, and what are they expecting from these tools?
Genesis, so thanks Paul for this introduction. Genesis is a proof provider. We provide proof of impact related to land use. So we provide this kind of proof for companies who need to have a real reliable measure for regeneration projects or for their raw material sourcing. It could be also for bank or funds who need strong KPI, reliable KPI for land asset management. So we are working, at the beginning, we are working more with the downstream of the supply chain. So how it works is we go on the field. And we make soil health measurements. So through carbon measure, we characterize the carbon stock. With DNA, we measure the biodiversity. We look at the functional genes inside the soil. And we work on the water cycle also, and we measure pollution inside the soil. So I think it's really important to say that when we have selected all our indicators, we have done this with public institutes, with research institutes. We need, for a strong MRV tool, we need to work with the research. I think it's a really important point because that's the reliability, that's the credibility of the tool. Another point is that we must stay a trusted third party. An MRV must stay independent. And I think the first step to be a trusted third party is to have or to haven't black boxes about our methodology. And it's a really important point. So after we measure the soil, we standardize, we normalize all the measure to a simple score between 0 to 100. And we make that related to our referential. So we have a referential to say if a soil is in a good or bad health, if it's the worst or the best situation for a context. And we normalize to give a simple language for our clients. And we talked about farmers before, and I think it's really important because I think a good MRV, it's based on science, that's sure. It's a trusted third party, but it's also something who help to act. And to act with the MRV, you need strong data. And we make correlation at the end between practices and impact on soil health in each pedoclimatic context. So we provide farmers with strong insight about how they can improve the health of their soil. And I think that we have to work at the two levels. For companies, we need to manage, as you said before, but at the farmer level to help them to find the best way to work on their field. So it could be on the field or on forest, or there's many cases, I think.
Thank you. So we already have some keywords: independence, transparency. Good. It would be good for the message after that. Thank you to work for Beatrice on that. So let's give the floor to Bradford Willis. You are representing Soil Information. If my information is correct,
Yes.
Soil Information is working on the development of, I would say, may I dare, a revolutionary device for measuring in situ parameters that are very important for the health of soil and the carbon content. Can you tell us about this device and how it could change the relation with the MRV and the farmers in the world?
Yes, and I'll just start with, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually an energy person. I'm here speaking for SIF, SIF, Soil Information, which is a company that I've just become passionate about because as I've educated myself as an energy systems professional and someone working in renewable energy, I have discovered that the soil is the best way to reduce greenhouse gases. So I'm a convert from the energy industry. So soil...
At least we have one.
Yeah, you have one. So I actually work for, if you guys know Razan. Razan is the high-level champion. She's the president of IUCN. I am her hydrogen and energy systems expert. And yes, green hydrogen only, no other colors of hydrogen. I am here for Soil Information, which is a biomedical device that supports companies already doing this, that actually sits in the soil and measures both organic carbon and inorganic carbon cycles. This was developed, as you mentioned, with researchers from UT Dallas and Texas A&M. So actually the technology has come from their research labs and then licensed by Soil Information over the last couple years. What it does, and I think what's breakthrough about the technology, and again, I'm an energy person, not a soil person, so I'm learning from all of you as you're speaking, is that it actually sits in the soil and provides real-time data in situ. So it actually provides information to the farmer or to the platform or to the business that's actually trying to get some value from the sequestration potential of the carbon in real time. And again, this does not require consistent technicians to go and service the technology. It actually is provided in real time. And as you mentioned, Paul, soil changes all the time, whether it's by region or it's by time. And so this actually provides data in real time over the course of a 2-year to 3-year period on a consistent cycle, so on a daily cycle. And that's really what's breakthrough about this technology. And I think it supports a lot of companies already doing this. So it's something that's meant to be licensed, and it's meant to support the ecosystem of companies already working in this space. I think where we are right now is a good question. So Soil Information is definitely a nascent company. It's at the early parts of its development, but they have launched in the United States, and they're looking to launch in Asia and in Europe. And of course, France is very much ahead in this space compared to the United States, in my opinion. And of course, in the Middle East, they're now trying to work, given where we are today. I can, Paul, provide more details as we get into it. But I think the main point is that over the course of the next 2 years, we're looking to launch these 2 to 3 data platforms to support companies working in the space, to license the technology, to measure both the inorganic and organic carbon cycle in real time. And that's really what we want to do, is scale the technology as much as possible and get it to as many people as we can. And of course, as you guys mentioned, give, and this is something I'm passionate about, get money back in the hands of the farmers themselves. And that's another value stream for the farmers to capitalize on, other than just the yield of which they're producing. So that's it for me for now.
Thank you very much, Brad. Yes, you can say a lot more about this device. I'm very curious to see it. We'll see that in the future. Maybe we can have a demonstration sometime all together. Great. JK. So today you are here to represent a company which is called Digital Green, which work at the interface with farmers. Can you tell us about the activity of such a company and what they can offer to farmers in the day-to-day work?
Thank you, Paul. Actually, I have 3 hats today, multiple hats, but I'm adjunct professor in University of California, Davis. I'm also scientific committee member, 4 per 1,000. And today I'm representing Digital Green. So Digital Green is a non-profit organization, not a company. And it was based in roots in India. And it started with the Microsoft research program in 2008. And their primary focus is to improve the livelihood of small farmers and rural communities. Now, of course, and they do it different ways, including they're involved in MRV, some innovations they have been employing it. Digital Green, for example, is participatory video production. So they produce videos together with farmers and in different languages. And the impact has been phenomenal. There are about 2.5 million videos downloaded and about 75,000 its extension workers, they have trained in that. And Digital Green has also been involved in MRV, as I mentioned, which is very important. I think people have emphasized how important it is to manage the impact of best management practices and land changes and climate mitigation efforts. And MRV is definitely so important. And we recently collaborated with the industry in US, just like similar to what previous speaker was mentioning, and they have developed shortwave infrared spectral sensor, which actually is a very small, like a pen drive, and it can measure the soil carbon. And once that's available, I think that will make things much, much easier. Of course, they are also involved in remote sensing technologies and soil sensors, as I mentioned, blockchain technology, user-friendly mobile apps and web-based platforms have been developed. And more recently, they are moving into artificial intelligence. As you probably know, there is a double exponential growth is happening, and how we can expedite extension and bring at a scale, and something Digital Green is doing very effectively together with several partners in India and elsewhere. Recently, they have piloted a MRV, affordable MRV model, which promote climate smart practices, especially nitrogen management. And that to improve yield and also reduce carbon dioxide equivalent greenhouse gases. And this model relies on frontline extension workers and also in collaboration with, as I mentioned, government and other agencies. And then scientists, they plug it into tier 2 greenhouse gas emission model. And it has been shown that farmers could reduce their misuses of nitrogen and increase productivity as well as the income. Finally, one very important aspect, Paul, is climate financing. We talk about how do we incentivize farmers. And Digital Green has been involved in digitization of extension system, at least in India, but also in Ethiopia. So they have all the data which are required to develop the mechanism for climate financing or incentivizing the farmers for good practices. I will stop here and then we'll get more discussion later.
Thank you, JK. So I think with this first round, we can see that this is a very complex subject. There is various technology, there are various actors around the table, there are various expectations. And so I would like to go around again and maybe ask all common question or some element. So for the scientists that you are, Budiman and Beverley from University of Queensland, can you just let us know how can we find, I would say not a unique solution, but what would be the best compromise in terms of technologies? There are also some modelization, the measurement, because we saw that soil sampling is quite expensive because there are analysis behind. So measurement direct in the field, that as it was said by Steve or by what JK said, is possible, but we are still in the science fiction, I would say, is just coming. How can we compromise that and make it simple for farmers and I would say almost also policymakers, because they need to understand, and sometimes it's difficult to explain what it is exactly. So on your scientific point of view, what could be the ideal system, and do you think there is a need for harmonization at the international level? Two very simple questions.
I'll start off, but that's such a complex question. I think the first thing to note is that there is no one solution at all. Whatever measurement system you have has to be fit for purpose. So if it's for a company that wants to meet KPIs or make claims about sustainability, it's a very different measurement and reporting and verification requirement to someone who, like in Australia, wants to be part of a carbon market and create carbon credits that are fungible products on a trading market. And the amount of rigour that you need is different again for a farmer who wants to understand his soil health. He wants to know that he's building soil carbon, but he's not necessarily having to do a formal reporting and verification according to international rules. And that's where the part about international rules is particularly interesting, because there are international standards for measuring soil carbon sequestration that mean you have to sample your soil down to at least 30 centimetres. You have to report carbon as a stock change, not just the percentage of carbon, but the amount, so that you can calculate what has been taken out of the atmosphere as a contribution to climate change mitigation. So all of those things add up to a very, very complex canvas. And I think the role of science in that is to develop tools that can meet the expectations and the needs of each of those stakeholders, but also to somehow improve our communication skills so that whatever your need is, you know that the tool that you're using can meet that need. They need to know the amount of uncertainty in it. They need to know what to look for to know that they're doing enough to meet their needs. So I haven't talked about particular products, but soil sampling and analysis in a laboratory is still a gold standard, but it's not necessary for every application in the same way. It calibrates models. It supports flux towers that measure the actual change in gases in the atmosphere. It's used as a library to calibrate spectrometry methods that can be used in the field as well as in the laboratory. But I just want to think we've got to be unbiased and have evidence that is defensible. Otherwise, perhaps it's more wishful thinking than science. So I'll hand over to Budi because he might talk in a little more detail.
Thank you. Budi, yes.
Okay, thanks, Beverley. So yes, thanks for the explanation. There are not one tool, but there are a range of options. But of course, that depends on what is the purpose of the MRV. But I can talk about what's the scientific development we have so far. So for measurement, there are alternative tools that have been verified. And there are lots of scientific papers about it that has proved the evidence that is infrared technology. So it can range from the near infrared to shortwave infrared to mid infrared. So the one in the field that is field applicable is the near infrared technology, which means that someone can take the near infrared in the field and measure it in the field. But all of these are indirect measure. That means that it has a uncertainty attached to it. That means that those are based on models as well. That based on models, I mean that the infrared signal is correlated with what's being measured as a soil carbon. So they are always attached to it uncertainty. So that is always have to take into account when we report the MRV. When as we discussed before, that we say that this measurement is taken with this technology which has this much uncertainty. So going towards that is then we have modeling. So there have been different modeling tools that have been developed for the past 20-30 years. But again, these modeling tools needs data to support it. That means that locally within each pedoclimatic region, it has its own parameters that not one single model can apply it everywhere in the world. So it needs to be validated, it needs to be calibrated, and again that has some attached uncertainty to it. And then moving that to it, then there are remote sensing technology. That means that from remote sensing, they take pictures of the earth every week, and that carries some signal, either the plant or the soil, that can be correlated with soil carbon. And again, that has some uncertainty attached to it. So what I can roughly say that the gold standard is with the most accurate is lab measurement, and then infrared technology is the second one, that, and then modeling, and then remote sensing. So each of this has reduce the cost, but also carry on it the uncertainty attached to it.
So
A combination of all of them, I think it's.
At the beginning, I thought it was simple. Now I understand it is more than complex. And you had another keyword, uncertainty. So we know that we don't know.
No, we know that.
We know that it's not perfect that we know. But just a last question to you, the scientist. We are talking about time lapse, and we know that carbon storage in the soil is quite a long process. Building a soil is a long process. Destroying a soil is a very short process. But if I understand you well, the uncertainty in the measurement allow us to make measurement in the lab, for instance, not every year. Every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years? What is your recommendation on that?
I mean, based on our experience in Australia, at least in Australia, I think to be able to detect change is roughly 5 years.
If I could just add to that, I mean, part of what that depends on is the variability in the climate, because that determines the first step, which is photosynthesis and the amount of organic matter that can go into the soil. And so the length of time you need with this variability according to climate extends out the more variable your climate. So it's not a simple question, or a simple question, not a simple answer.
Okay, but I like also what you said. There is not one solution. This is also something I like. Right. Coming back to, maybe we can ask Rakesh and JK at the same time. You want to add something? Okay, Brad, take the floor. If you need to take the floor, please just raise your hand.
I'm getting summoned by Her Excellency Razan, so I need to run out. So I'm wondering if I can say one more thing, and then
say more than one more thing.
Okay, and I want to get this right because I want to explain a little more about the technology. And again, I'm not the expert. UT Dallas and Austin are the experts, but again, this is a technology that sits in the soil, and it supports the ecosystem of players already in the space, making everything they do better. Again, you don't need a technician, and what has happened to date is that the probes estimate what's in the soil. This is actually direct measurements of what's in the soil in real time. And the reason it can do that is it's actually biomedical device that was produced over 20 to 30 years of biomedical research for the human body, and is actually used now in the soil. So this is a lab that actually was focused on application in the human body, and the technology we realized was actually perfect for this application.
I ignore that we have some carbon in our soils, but
exactly. And I really want to get this right, but it has small electrochemical chips and a battery. It flushes the system after every use, so every day it goes to a 0 state so that it can get an accurate reading again for the next cycle, as in a 24-hour period. What they say is it's a bit like a Fitbit for the soil, and that's their tagline for people like me who don't work in the soil industry. And again, the technology should just support these other ecosystem players, the companies that are already working in MRV, the companies that are already doing validation, carbon credit schemes, and so forth. And again, it is, I'll just reiterate, it's nascent. It's in its early stages, but hoping to reach commercialization in the United States and then in Europe. And the one other thing I'll mention is that, and I would love to be, told more about this space, but as an energy expert, what I understand is what you guys call kind of like the short-term carbon cycle. So I think about upstream, production emissions, removing that, abating it, changing the source, and then that's kind of, I think, we fix global warming. But what I've learned is that it's actually much more complex, and actually in Africa, they've, through their studies, figured out that actually up to 40% of the soil is inorganic carbon matter, and that is actually incredibly difficult to measure. And if you don't get a complete view of that carbon life cycle, and a complete view of the carbon measurement, then of course you don't have a full picture, and you're not able to give a 100% read on what's actually happening in the soil itself and in real time. So again, I am not the expert, but I would love, of course, I can share more information from the research paper itself. And again, I'm sorry, I do have to run.
Yes, thank you, Brad. Just a message for CIF and for the people behind CIF. I think this is a very promising device coming up. What we would like to is to have these tools accessible to all. And when I said all, I mean farmers. Yeah. So this, even though it is commercialized because, well, there is a cost of fabrication, I mean, it's normal. It would be really a game changer if we could have this device at a very low price. Then we can put in the field of not every farmers, because it will be ambitious, but in a small location that could help farmers to know where they are and prove to the other one that they're going in the right direction. This is very important because most of the policymakers are not willing really to go in that field because they said, well, we are talking about 5 years, which is quite a length of a mandate. You know what I mean? And it's also complex. But if we can have something that can measure and give a global figure, say, okay, in 2-3 years' time, you will see the evolution if we are going in the right direction or not. And if we are not, okay, then now you have to change the practices. This is another key word, practices. We will come back on that later. Okay, so if you have to escape,
yes, I'm sorry.
you are authorized to escape because we know that COP, if you need to go on the other side of the COP, it's quite a long,
yes,
a long run.
I'm going to run. But thank you. It was great meeting everybody.
And we keep in touch,
you.
and we'll see you in 2 days' time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
See you.
Tomorrow, sorry, it's not in 2 days' time. Yeah. Time is running. Yes, that's something I wanted to say. So, give you the floor to both of you because it was my first intention. Okay, listening of all that you listen, what is now your positioning and what could you say more about Digital Green, about BAIF, about what they are doing on MRV?
We got to have very simplified approach, Paul, because we are not only talking time, over time, but also scale. We got to reach millions of farmers. And I remember my professor used to tell me, what you see above ground is reflection of below ground. So if you can measure above ground, which is more easier than below ground, why not do that? And so what my professor was hinting to is look at the soil productivity, which is actually translated into crop yield, and make sure the farmers are following all good practices. They are applying enough nutrients which they are taking out, so ensure that they are not mining, and applying residue, recycling residue. Once you have that, you probably don't need to worry about this complicated MRV, which I think is going to be, I mean, we heard it's very complex, very uncertain. It's going to be nightmare, actually. So we have to think outside the box, some simplified approach, which we go at a scale. That's what my take on it. And incentivize farmers for them to do right things.
Okay, Rakesh?
Yeah, thank you. So what I would like to add onto that is that what we have been discussing, a common point is on the complexities. And I think that complexities arise because of the fact that there are multiple stakeholders. And the ultimate objective is soil health, which is the essence. But the individual stakeholder perception or objectives are divergent. So for the farmer, for example, he's not concerned about carbon credit per se. For him, soil is his livelihood. So his perception is different. So I think as BAIF, what we are as BAIF, what we have been doing is that even in this in such instances, what is required is like MRV is quite scientific. But what we have been doing is that demystification of this scientific applications in the language or in the way that the farmer, the end user, will understand. So that has been one core area that we have been focusing on. So with that comes the importance of participatory approach. So we cannot have kind of an isolated that MRV for this set of stakeholders or MRV for farmers. It cannot be that way. It cannot be de-linked. So for MRVs to be effective, so MRV is quite scientific, but unless it is integrated with the societal, the social aspect, it will remain kind of somewhat incomplete. And just to give an example from India, so earlier, very simple, the soil testing that we have been doing. So it was only limited to NPK. Then organic carbon is important, micronutrients are important, but then that's still half the this. Like it's like the prescription of a doctor without the advice of a doctor is not that effective. So that is where what the farmer has to do in terms of practices that he has to adopt. So that has to go along with that reporting. Just a couple of points. So that is why the two-way communication is important. I think MRV, we have been talking about collecting all the data from the field, collecting, so we have been focusing a lot on that. But what data is coming back to the farmer? So that is something that MRV should have. It should have, the tool should have the feedback loop, which should go back to the farmer. And specifically in the Indian context, I think one which we can adopt is, India has made a lot of progress in digital technologies. So, and all MRVs now, for efficiency and effectiveness, I think digital medium, like be it satellite-based sensing, or be it, as you mentioned, near-time infrared sensing. So that it's all digital. We need to, or based on IoT, we need to focus on that. But along with that, I think we have a lot of scope for integrating physical. So it can be a phygital kind of approach where we have a lot of on-ground resources that we need to also use for monitoring, reporting, and validation. So with that, I would like to pause here. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I may say, it was clearer, but well, it's not exactly what we are living here. Well, just to finish, JK, I'm a little bit in disagreement with you. You were talking about the fact that we need to measure what's going out and what's going in, but it was not simple. I mean, we knew that by the past we measure NPK, but it's not enough. We know that it's not enough. So the conventional agriculture leads to soil degradation, and we lose a lot of organic matter. We know that. So this is something that we need to be careful of. And of course, nutrients are not enough. We know that they are not enough. And now we need to change our practice. So coming back to you, ladies, about all what was said. And I know that you are dealing with some complex things. Can you explain a little bit more about what are your relations between a company and between a provider of services? You can start, Adrienne, if you wish. But if you have to say something...
Yes, I have just to say something before.
Sure.
About, I think we share something with CIF. If we measure the soil, if we make samples inside the soil, it's not because we love that. It's because we don't have the knowledge today. When you are working in many pedoclimatic contexts, when you are working in many countries with many commodities, it's really hard. You said there's many models. If we want to use modeling, it's really hard. It's impossible. And so today, I think we need innovation. We need innovation like CIF, but we need to have data about soil, and that's why Genesis is going in the field, because we need this data to have something reliable. It's not, it's not a patient. Because, and we are working on remote approach today, but it's the beginning, I think. And maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, we will have a really strong methodology to have something accurate about carbon and maybe about soil health, because we are talking about carbon, but it's not only carbon, soil health, I think. Paul, I would like to have your point of view. But we need time, we need innovation, and we need knowledge.
Oh, that's true. That's definitely true. And it's true also that what I said before, we are in a moving world. And things are evolving, and hopefully in the future you can have device in the field that could allow you not to make sample, because this is destructive and this is costly and so on. And not talking about the uncertainty about the lab. You did not explain that you are choosing specific lab for each kind of analysis, which is, I mean, it's another effort that you are doing. Okay, so please, wait and see.
Yeah, wait and see. So just to jump on what Adrienne said. So we are working together here in order to have a reference, a data reference, a data platform regarding soils and soils health in the different terroirs. And we are working together. And the dream is to have, one ranking or one data regarding soil in Argentina and in Champagne and in Australia. And of course, the target is not to say we have to achieve exactly the same, because we know this is not, we have local issues again, but just to have an idea where we are from the beginning and where we are going, thanks to the different practices. And when you mention different practices, meaning, for example, to use cover cropping everywhere in order to nurture soils, or try with agroforestry practices, so plant hedges and trees in our terroirs, in our vineyards. So we really push all these practices, but we have to measure the results to be sure we improve the soil health in the right direction, and to target by 2030, I don't know, the dream, to have soil in a better condition, in a better health all over the world, but with different practices to achieve this target. And again, because it is complex, because we all test and learn everything for the moment, we think at Moët & it was very important to gather all the practices, all the initiatives, all the research from scientists, from experts, from NGO, and this is the reason why we have decided to create an event, a dedicated event, the World Living Soils Forum. It was the first one last year, and the second one will be next year, in order to gather all the stakeholders regarding soils, to be sure everybody is talking with everyone. Because we are convinced that collective intelligence, with a different perspective, with a different background, different knowledge, very crucial to share, of course, to define methodology, to agree on this methodology, to agree on what we have to test, to be sure we ensure the bridge between scientists and the field and the farmers, and how it is work in the real life. To be sure we can, of course, include the livelihood. Very important always to have the social issue in the mindset. And this is the reason why it's very important to organize it. Of course, you are all invited within this event. It will be in France, in the south of France. It will be the 9th and the 10th of October in 2024. And we are expecting 1,000 people. Yes, maybe better like that. 1,000 people to measure everything. Of course, MRV will be at the center of the discussion. All initiatives, all practices all over the world, in order to be sure a nice initiatives in a terroir can be, for example, implemented in another one, in order to accelerate, in order to scale up everything, in order to have a better knowledge and a better way to measure everything, in order, of course, to improve.
Thank you, Sandrine. Just before wrapping up, just to mention the fact that we also organize an event. We also have the same wish to put all the stakeholders together to discuss, because this is really, I like what you said. I prefer collective intelligence than artificial intelligence. I agree with you. And that will be tomorrow in the Dusit Tanit Hotel in Dubai. We will have the 4 per meal day. So you will be there, I know. Most of you will be there, or in presence or virtually, but that's the most important. And I would like to say also before that we are, there is a company called Deloitte who just conducted a study on MRV for the 4 per meal. They make a kind of inventory of the main systems, the main tools. And the idea is just to give some clue about the users, which tools suits the better to their needs. And if you are a company, maybe tools like Genesis would be better. If you are a farmers, maybe you can look for a small, simple one in relation with BAIF and Digital Green and some others. So the idea is that, and we will provide a small web page or a small app that will be able to guide in this jungle of about 60 tools all around the world the users to find the right word for their needs. So I will ask you a very last question, the same that you asked yesterday. We are in 2023. What is your dream for 2030 in terms of MRV? So start by you, Adrienne.
Okay. In terms of MRV, I hope that there's no more question about MRV, you know, because that's a good point. No more question about MRV. I think the worst thing that can happen, it's to, because we want to go fast, we take not the right direction, and we have some kind of MRV. Well, it's not greenwashing, but they are. We take everything. We want just data. We want to know a little bit more. We want a MRV, but what we provide is not the answer to the question. The goal of a MRV is to give credibility to something that you want to change. You know, you want to give credibility. So I hope that in 2030, there's no more question about MRV, because all the MRV are robust and can provide good information.
Yes, Beverley?
I'm probably a little less ambitious, but just to start by saying, in Australia, MRV and soil carbon and its role in climate change mitigation is quite strongly debated between different stakeholders. So by 2030, I would hope that we're at a position where we've all learned enough about what we know and what we don't know, and have worked together to the extent where perhaps we haven't answered all the questions on MRV, but we are working that everyone is working together towards a collective goal of managing the soils better for both soil health and productivity, but also for climate change mitigation, and very importantly for resilience and adaptation, because that's really a big need coming up for farmers.
Thank you, Budi.
Yes, my vision is by 2030 we will be moved away from MRV, but we will have our product which will tell us where does it come from and what practices it has done.
Yes, but you will need anyway to report. At least that will be the R of MRV.
Yes. So, what I would wish is one thing from the farmer's perspective. So, one thing on uniformities, which should be like uniform, which anyone and everyone can access, and which is in the hands of the farmer, like which is directly accessible to the farmer rather than scouting or looking for it elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. JK.
I believe in innovations, Paul, and I think by 2030 or even before that, we will have some innovative products, and we had some discussion. I also mentioned about this. We are working with this company, and AI will make that faster. You said collective intelligence better than AI. By the way, AI is also collective intelligence. It's not working singly. And some people don't like to call AI. They like to call it amplification of intelligence. So I'm quite optimistic that we will have some innovative tools to measure soil carbon, and that will make MRV easier.
Collective amplified intelligence. Right. That would be better. Sandrine.
For me, the dream would be maybe that MRV, it's not just a mysterious word in company, for example, as us. So it will be something very easy to understand, and I like something to measure again everything, And my wish would be more than to be sure that we have progress in terms of soil health by 2030 and check with the MRV system. But my wish, my dream, is to have a better soil everywhere within this planet.
Your health, your soul. Yeah, we agree. Okay, thank you very much. So I give the floor to Beatrice, a Strategic Partnership and Global Outreach Senior Officer of the FOPEMIL. She will give us the... Just sit, please, yes, and have a mic. And give us, what is your... What did you get from message from this side event, and what will be the come back home message that we can have to our attendants?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for this very fruitful conversation between all of you. A few things I wanted to, that I've been writing on my notebooks. It's you have started to talk. First, soil is the best way to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. That was said by our friend of SIF. Second, as Paul said, the loss of organic matters all over the world is really a huge problem. We know that in Europe more than 60% of the soils are depleted, and it's even worse in other countries or other places, and we need to change practices. Third thing, soil carbon measurement is changing all the time, and that's the difficulty faced by scientists. And we know, so it's and it's also happening in a very evolving environment. Evolving on a climate point of view, because climate change is happening more frequently, more intensively. And also there is another evolving environment, which is legislation. Legislation is changing very, very soon. It's happening right now, and sometimes policymakers doesn't take the right decisions because they don't know enough about MRV, and that's also something we have to push. A good MRV, to summarize, is based on science. It needs strong data. These data and should be independent, transparent, and affordable for farmers. So it makes me affordable for farmers. So it makes me think also that this MRV discussion was about what are the needs, because the need for farmers are very different from the needs for private sector companies, because they want to measure their soil health, to capitalize on what they own, and to change their practices, to evolve the way they farm. But on the other side, you have also private sector companies who want to really measure their impact and take care of their value chains and really take care of their farmers too. Because if they don't take care of the farmers, there's no more products, and they can't go on in selling their champagne or wines or whatever. So that's why also advisory companies like Genesis are very key, or SIF, because you provide the right data. And to conclude, I would say that the collective work, as was said, is very, very important, and collective amplified work is also key. So, but don't forget to make it affordable to farmers, which is really at the center of our work.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for spending this time with us and giving your insight and your knowledge and your wisdom. Thank you to all, and well, enjoy the COP. Continue. We have another side event coming up, and even here on this.
And don't forget, as Paul said before, tomorrow at the 7th day of the initiative, there will be a session on MRV too, with the people from Deloitte presenting the
study I was talking about. Thank you very much to all. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.